So we're going to go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen here with you that starts out on a couple of things. One is what we're going to be covering today is powered industrial trucks. And this is more from the supervisory standpoint. I'm going to be focusing a lot on the supervisor and the managers that oversee this operation and kind of what a forklift program will look like and kind of some of the finer details of that so that you know what your role is as a supervisor and as a manager, what your role is when you walk through a facility and what you're looking for with your operators and some of the requirements for managing those areas. So right now I've got a screen up there about talking about the, it's just a chart and a graph that just talks about some of the fatalities and major injury contributing areas. And these are some things that the reason why this is so important, because, you know, in this little chart, and I'll send it on to everybody after the presentation, but this is a really good chart to go over every once in a while and spend a few minutes understanding it, especially as a supervisor, knowing what the real critical parts are, what causes injuries, what causes fatalities. And then I'll give you kind of some of my perspective, but what's interesting in this is it shows that there are a lot of injuries, a lot of fatalities that occur with these types of pieces of equipment when that vehicle either gets struck by another vehicle or when it overturns. And those are the two biggest concerns. Of course, hitting pedestrians is another big cause in there. And that's just because oftentimes people operating a forklift just can't see where they're going. And we'll talk about some of that a little bit later. That's why the horn is so important on one. And that's why the little blinking light that's on top of these forklifts should be maintained and make sure that works real well while you're moving around a facility or out at a job site. Forklifts are so important that all the pedestrians around them know where, you know, where that forklift is, what direction they're going, that sort of thing. The next thing I want to talk about is what are the safety requirements for this? You know, what are the safety requirements for operating a forklift? In this document that I provided to Keith and to Rebecca, and this is going to be probably top of the list. This is going to be one of those things. The top 5 of these things need to be emphasized. All supervisors, all managers need to know that these top 5 things that are on this list, which are proper training and authorization is required. In other words, they don't operate and they don't work a forklift unless they have been certified to do so by your organization. What that means is they've gone through the training. What does the training look like? The training is 2 steps. Best practice is you've got 2 steps in your training operation. The supervisor needs to know this. The managers need to know this. There are 2 steps. First step is classroom. Classroom is going through all the designated training about a forklift and making sure they know all the safety rules and all the requirements to be able to operate a forklift and pass a written test. The second part is to be able to demonstrate and have the skills to operate a forklift, also having a test that they pass to have an operator's test to do that forklift operation. Then and only then can you give them a certificate to operate a forklift.
Give me a second, I got it.
I'm
Hey,
sorry?
Joe, you got to mute yourself, bud.
Okay. So knowing that they got to be properly trained, knowing that there's never extra riders allowed on a forklift, ever under any circumstance, extra riders. And what they mean by that is I walked into a job site the other day to do a quick walkthrough inspection. They were moving a piece of equipment. It was some kind of press or some kind of small item sitting on a pallet. They had somebody standing on that pallet and they were moving it out to they were getting rid of it and going to replace it with a new one. And they were riding on that pallet to hold that piece of equipment onto that forklift. That's a big no-no. You cannot ride, only one rider, and that's the driver and operator. So if you ever see that happening, where there's more than one person on a forklift, that's a big no-no and they need to be stopped immediately. Truck, you know, this presentation kind of goes through trucks, how different they handle than a regular automobile, and the employee is responsible for obeying all the safety rules, of course, and then they have to report all accidents. Pre-trip planning, they have to do a pre-trip inspection. We'll go over that a little bit later. The operating instructions are in here. The lifting and placing loads instructions are here. Truck parking, how do you refuel it? This is, if you wanted to see the shortest possible list of the requirements, this is the one that you would place if you were going to place a job description. Here's your list of things that you'd put in your job description about how you operate a forklift. So this is a nice little document that does that. Now, what does a program look like? I have provided Keith and Rebecca a copy of a program. And what a program includes is a policy and a procedure and the safe operation guidelines. So it has to have those three elements or it's not a program. A program should be formal written document. So this one is formally written. It has a reference standard. It has a purpose, it has a scope, it has responsibilities. And under the responsibilities section, when you get a chance to review this, if you can't see this on your screen right now, I will tell you there are 4 main responsibilities. The first 2 say that management, they use the word management, that means supervisors and managers. That's interesting that the responsibilities for forklift program, first 2 things mentioned are management. Keep that in mind. Management is responsible for development, review of this program, and for maintaining it. Management and supervisors are responsible for enforcement of this program. That means if you have an employee that's not certified running a forklift, ultimately that responsibility falls back on the manager for not staying on top of it and knowing who is and who isn't certified. Of course, the employee is responsible for themselves, and it says the next item is employees must comply with all procedures as outlined in this policy. And then, of course, it talks about contracts and vendors. If you have people on your job site or in your workplace, they must comply with all procedures, especially if they're on your property or on your job site. They must comply also with these safeties. What does that mean? As a manager and you are the general, you're out on a job site, you have people bring forklifts on your job site, should you be checking to make sure they have certified drivers to operate that forklift? You bet it does. My best practice would be make sure their people are certified before they're allowed on the property. Don't just assume they are. I ran into one of these just the other day, a situation where we had a contractor, a sub, causing an injury to one of our contractor employees. And the sub was operating a forklift, did not have training or certification program in-house and hurt one of our employees um, as a contractor, and we found out real quickly that the management at that job site was not watching who was operating that equipment. It is responsibility of whoever has control of the safety at that job site to stay on top of it. This policy and procedure, this program goes through some definitions as to what type of forklifts there are, the different classifications, the training requirements, what has to be in the training, what the refresher training might look like, how you select the proper forklift for the job being done, all the different requirements in that, and this procedure includes all of the definitions and all of the descriptions and all the types of forklifts that are available out there. Be sure you know what's going on here. You need to spend some time familiarizing yourself with the other kinds, and no telling when you're going out for bid or when you're looking for a new or a used forklift. Be sure you're following these rules and make sure you've got the right type of powered industrial truck to do the job you want it to do. It gets into pre-trip inspections and the fact that that's required, goes into the operating, the lifting practices, the dock safety, truck parking, how you refuel one, and if they're battery operated, and in some cases there are battery operated forklifts, powered industrial trucks, and it talks about battery maintenance and how to do those correctly and how to even charge those correctly and in a safe manner. So this policy, as you can tell, this procedure, this program has nearly everything in it that you would need to have pertaining to an organization. I highly recommend that managers spend a few minutes, supervisors spend a few minutes of familiarizing themselves with everything that's in here. There's some pretty decent information. You probably learn something, especially if you manage a area that has forklifts in it. This one's been updated with some new OSHA rules and some new cautionary statements in there. And if you've been through training in the last 24 months to 12 months, you've probably seen a lot of these requirements, a lot of these things that's covered in here. But if you haven't done it in the last 24 months, there may be some new material in here. I highly recommend you spend a little bit of time in here. This program also includes an appendix or several appendices that are in this. One is you're supposed to keep a list, a running list or a tally of everybody that is certified to operate a forklift. OSHA mentions it in several of their procedures. I highly recommend keeping that list handy so that everybody knows who's been certified, who has not. The next appendix is what your certification card might look like. This is one that was developed for this particular program. Use it if you want to, or don't use it. Use one you've already got. Suits me just fine. As long as you have one to laminate and give to the employee, that's all that matters. The next appendices has to do with the operator evaluation. This appendix actually is the pass-fail record of the skills test. That's the second portion of the training where the employee is actually operating it. This is the pass-fail for all of the maneuvers and general skills that are required to be a forklift operator. This has to be completed. They've got to pass all of them in order to be able to operate a forklift and give them that certification. If you're ever wondering what they need to practice on in a very safe area, these are the ones that they've got to practice to get good at in order to pass their test. There is a pre-trip or pre-shift forklift inspection list here. If you've already got one in place, great. Please continue to use that one. There's one in here in case you don't and you want to implement one. This one has a complete list of everything you need to be doing on your pre-trip. The next document in this program is just a nice one-page little handout. I highly recommend this be on your bulletin boards in the facility or on the job sites where forklifts are required. This might be a nice little document. It's just a one-pager to post at the job site, be able to be posted in your training materials. This one should be there and available. But that pretty much concludes the program itself. And you're wondering, well, how would I present this material, especially in a classroom setting? There's a nice PowerPoint presentation that I've included with this that can be used. You may already have some training material on hand, but this is one that has been vetted by our training resources folks, and it goes through all of the aspects of the training, the classroom portion, which is the first step that has to be done for training, and refresher courses is to get your classroom training done. And of course, this training goes through the learning objectives, the training requirements. It goes, goes through everything we just talked about. I will tell you, there's some areas in this training that I would suggest, if you're doing your training internally, that you spend a lot more time on. The stability triangle section in this, talking about where the center of gravity of a forklift is, both vertically and horizontally. There's a stability, and then there's a lot of charts and graphs and diagrams showing you where the center of gravity needs to be, and kind of what happens when you have a tipping point and a tipping problem. One of the main things I want to get by you today in your training program, if there's a single two items, if there are two items in a supervisor's scope where you can make the biggest impact on keeping your employees safe when they're operating a forklift, it's these. Number one, the employee must always, without fail, wear their seatbelt every time they're operating a forklift. If it's a ride-on forklift, they have to wear their seatbelt. The reason? There is a 90% chance of the employee coming out okay if that vehicle, if that forklift tips over, that they're going to come out with with less than major injury if they're still in that seat. There is less than a 50% chance of surviving a forklift tip over or fall out of a forklift if they're not wearing their seatbelt. That means that less than 50% of the time when you have a forklift tip over, if that employee is not wearing their seatbelt, less than 50% of the time they're going to survive. That is a scary statistic. This is why OSHA places such emphasis on this, and this is why insurance carriers emphasize this so much, is that the number one thing on the top of the list, they have to wear the seatbelt if it's a ride-on type forklift. There's a lot of smaller forklifts where you stand on them, where you walk behind them. Obviously, we're not talking about those. We're talking about the ride-on forklift. The ride-on forklift, you've got to wear your seatbelt. Make sure that that's part of your daily inspection, pre-shift inspection. Make sure that is looked at. If a supervisor was to impact one thing that would help tremendously. The other part is making sure they're certified, making sure they are utilizing that piece of equipment, and hold them accountable, hold employees accountable for doing their pre-trip. Make sure that they're doing their pre-trip inspection. That pre-trip inspection, catching all the minor things that can go wrong with the forklift, staying on top of your maintenance on those forklifts. The one that I handled about a month ago, or at least was involved with, I knew about and kind of helped them through the situation was, of course, on most forklifts, they have a chain-driven lifting. In the mast, there's a chain. And when that chain gets old, gets worn, is not properly maintained with grease and lubricated correctly, it can wear and it'll break. Had an incident not too long ago that a little over a month ago where they had a load up on top of that forklift. They were carrying a large metal container. That chain broke. The whole system fell and landed on one of their employees that happens to be a standby. First of all, they were too close, shouldn't have been anywhere near that piece of equipment while they were moving it around. So there was a violation right there of them, the operator allowing employees to be too close to what they were doing. Second part they found out was that they were exceeding the maximum weight capacity of that forklift. So there's a second issue. And then the third thing was that supervisor was not on site when moving such a large piece of equipment and hadn't really discussed. They don't do that very often. It's not done very often. It's like once a month they move something that size. They're supposed to go over the safety requirements before they do that, since it's only done once a month. And they did not do that. We found several issues with that. Fortunately, this employee that was the bystander lived. They've definitely got some broken bones and some other issues, but just a matter of a couple of inches and they would have died. So there are a lot of issues when coming to maintaining and having those things maintained, doing your pre-inspection, making sure things are working correctly before you jump behind the wheel and use that thing on that pre-shift inspection. So those pre-shift inspections, making sure they're certified to run it, and making them wear the seat belt. Those are the three biggest things that you can do as a supervisor. And if you walk by and you see them not complying with certain things that's in this training, make sure you stop, put a stop to it right there, and have a discussion with your employees. Don't let it continue to occur. That's my presentation, because a forklift program should take a couple of hours. I did that in 25 minutes. Does anybody have any questions regarding this this presentation or anything that I've covered? Keith?
Hey, Jim, thank you for covering that. I don't know if you can see my screen. I actually pulled over. Can you see my screen or no?
I can, yes.
Is it me? Do you see the guy on the articulating boom?
Yes, I can.
Okay, apparently he's not certified. Otherwise, he would have a harness on, a hard hat on. He's approximately 40 feet in the air, rough terrain. Then you have guys over here, same thing on a scissor lift. So it is very true about being certified for these pieces of equipment. And I appreciate you touching on this. And I am certified through the company, so I can certify our team and get them the literature. But I've been chomping at the bit the whole time going, oh my gosh, I need to leave. This is horrible.
Yeah, it can catch you off guard real quick.
But it happens that quick. And if nobody's going to if the supervisor, like you stated, supervisor or manager is not going to make them, you don't think that that guy up there on that articulated boom would say, hey, the boss said it was all right.
That's
So
where it comes down to management and being a supervisor. You want to stop this stuff before it starts, and try to stay on top of it and identifying what you see and making a change immediately.
yes, sir. And that's the biggest thing is, they just in a hurry and they get up there and they just start going to work. But you got to have safety first. You want that guy to go home safe.
This is true. Very good. Does anybody have any other comments or questions?
I do. If nobody has any questions pertaining to the lifts, I just want to make a couple comments while I have everybody. Number one, everyone, this is off topic. I apologize, but everybody continues in their email to get random e-faxes. Those are junk. Block the sender. I'm not going to ask anybody in the company to go buy me gift cards. So those are block the sender. And then checking email credentials if you get an email that looks a little bit off. If you're not used to being the one who deals with payments or vendor invoices or something, for example, and you're getting questions regarding those things, double check that email address. I know I sent the email out to everybody about a week ago or so about how they alter kind of how it's spelled, or maybe they miss a dash where there's supposed to be a dash, things like that. So keep an eye out for these things. Block those senders. Let us know when that happens so that we can put you in the right direction as far as how to keep those things blocked company wide, those certain addresses. Just something else that I wanted to pop on and say. It's just kind of running rampant right now, and I mean, it's the more we can get those people blocked and out of our lives, the better. I don't think it'll ever stop. It's just something we always need to be cautious about. Okay, guys.
10-4.
Okay, well, I really appreciate everyone today, and if you have any questions, be sure and let Keith or Paul know, and we'll go from there. I will see you guys next month. Thank you.
Much apprecited. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jim.